Hey everyone, my name is Alex Bauer and I'm the communications specialist here at PPA. Today we're talking to one of our amazing photographers who will be speaking at Imaging USA, Arica Dorff. How are you doing today, Arica?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into it.
Cool.
Why don't you go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about your background as a photographer and sort of your experience with Imaging USA in the past.
Sure. So I'm actually a pet photographer. That's actually what I specialize in. And I actually do pet photography road trips. That's my specialty. So I used to have a brick and mortar studio for 9 years, 2,500 square feet, and I had 3 employees, and we shot, 200 plus sessions a year. So I sold that business, and I now do pet photography road trips just seasonally. I do one road trip a year, and yeah, I've been shooting, 40, 50 sessions a year. So totally different business model. I travel all over the country doing pet and family portrait sessions, and kind of live like a retired person for the other part of the year. And yeah, I do some pet paintings as well. But yeah, I've been attending Imaging USA for many years. I've been a PPA member for, gosh, over a decade, the majority of the time that I've been a photographer. And yeah, I did my first pre-con class, pet photography pre-con class at Imaging last year, which was an awesome experience. Just, smaller class size, real like lots of kind of one-on-one time with people. Got to do some live shooting and photograph some pets. So yeah, so this year I'm going to be doing a pre-con class as well, not live shooting, but doing kind of behind the scenes, kind of talking about that and kind of pull back images and where I have owners, how I kind of utilize them as assistants during the portrait session, kind of where I have them stand. And that's a really big part of being successful as a pet photographer, kind of instructing the owners on where you want them to be and how you want them to do things. And so many people think that they have to have an assistant to be able to do pet photography, and that it's like this extra out-of-pocket expense, and you don't. You really can just put your owners to work, which is kind of cool. So in that pre-con class, we'll talk about that and then talk about kind of the business side of things. And then I'm doing a platform class at Imaging as well, and that's on the business side of things. So it's called Let's Make a Profit. And that's something I'm just super, super passionate about, because it's all about like understanding your numbers in a really simple way. How much should you actually mark up your products? Because everyone always says like, make sure you're charging enough, like make sure that you pay yourself first. And like, those are all awesome concepts, but if you don't understand how to do that and how to implement that, so many people are like, well, it's a great concept, but I have to pay my rent. I can't not pay my rent. I can't not pay my employees. I can't not pay these other bills, so how do we set up a system in a really simple way so that we're understanding our numbers, we're marking things up appropriately, we are paying ourselves, we're saving for retirement, all of these super important things. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk about that in January.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and sort of take away some of that fear that sometimes photographers have when it comes to sort of pricing their services and presenting that to clients.
Yeah, because a lot of people are basing their pricing off of what other photographers are charging, or they're basing it on like, what's standard in the industry. And it's like, we can't base our pricing on that because we don't know other photographers' business model. Like, are you shooting 250 sessions a year, or are you shooting 25 sessions a year? Or that could be weddings or events or whatever it is. Do you have a 2,000 square foot studio that you're paying thousands of dollars of rent in? Or did you inherit the studio that you're in and you don't have to pay anything for it? So we can't base it on other people because we don't know what their business is like. We don't even know if they're profitable, so if we can understand our numbers in such a simple way that doesn't require accounting skills, it doesn't require, complicated spreadsheets. It's just something super just easy to do. And, it's just a way that you're not going to discount your products. Once you understand your numbers, you're not going to discount your products and your services, and you're going to confidently present those numbers and your pricing to your clients, because it's not worth it. Once you understand it, it's not worth it to do it for any less. So there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of confidence that comes with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the one of the big things that I'm understanding about Imaging USA is how much it's about empowering the attendees and sort of giving them the tools that they need to succeed as an entrepreneur.
No, absolutely. And I know imaging does that so well. Just PPA is so good about, making sure they're covering kind of all the bases. It's like, yes, we want to create amazing artists, right? We want you to raise your level of art, but it's also, we want you to like survive and have an income and, have something to show, for all of this and all of the hard work that you're doing, So yeah, there's image competition and all of that's amazing,
Hmm.
but it's also like, yeah, talking about the business and um, yeah, just a business and life balance and all of that. So yeah, it's a nice, super nice mix of,
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Um, so what do you remember, just talking generally about imaging and your experience in the past going to imaging, what sort of
Mm.
sticks out to you the most, or like how would you describe it to someone who's never been there before?
Oh man. Okay, so you kind of have to be all in, right? You can't go to something like imaging and be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to kind of go for a little bit and kind of check things out. Like the first time I went to imaging, I walked into the expo and I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so many vendors and there's so much happening, in a good way, but I almost in the beginning had to kind of put blinders on, because if not, there's too much to see and there's too many classes. And so I always tell people to go in with a plan,
Hmm.
and my plan is always different every year. So go in with a plan and say, this is where my business is at right now. This is what I need to focus on. I'm going to put my blinders on. I'm not going to get overwhelmed by all these other things. So it's like every single year it's fun because the classes that I take and the vendors that I visit at the expo are totally different every year. Because some years I'm like, okay, I really want to focus on like off camera flash. So like,
Hmm.
let me attend those classes and hear from those people. And I did some like light painting classes that I attended. Just different things. But in the beginning of my business, like I'm not spending any time or effort on off camera flash or light painting or like fancy lenses and equipment. It's like I was just like, I need to figure out like a printing lab, and I need to figure out who's printing my albums, and I need to figure out like how I should be setting my lights up, So yeah, it's just kind of cool that you can, but don't try to take everything in. I would say that would be a mistake to try to, absorb it all. It's like, yeah, kind of go in with a plan, and like PPA posts everything ahead of time. You can read all of the class descriptions ahead of time and kind of see what sounds good. But and everyone says this all the time. It's like the magic really happens in the hallways,
Hmm.
and just like the after parties and meeting people and just talking to people casually, and everyone has their name badge on, and it's like there's so many connections within circles, like people that I'm like, oh my gosh, like we've been friends forever. I had no idea that you guys were friends. And, so yeah, it's just a really cool, supportive, like we're not in competition with each other. It's just like a very good, supportive group of people, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of the word I hear up come over and over is both a sense of community and
Yep,
support, and
very much.
as well as the energy that's there at Imaging USA.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of what you said. It's a little bit like a family reunion.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
just that energy is the thing that comes up over and over when I hear people talk
Yeah.
about imaging.
Yeah, I think about it almost like a cruise ship. If you go on a cruise, like you could be like, we're gonna do like formal night every night, and we're gonna like, or like other people are like, we're just gonna go to the buffet and we're gonna hang out by the pool. Like you can literally make it whatever you want, right? Like you can like do all the parties and do all the social things, or you can say like, I'm gonna get up at 7 a.m. every day and go to every single class that there is. And there's even little talks going on during the expo that's outside of the pre-con and outside of platform. So there's all of that education too, So yeah, just yeah, making the most of so many people. Like we're all friends online on Facebook,
Hmm.
but it's like this like the one time of year that we actually get to see each other in person. So yeah, and you can stop. I mean, there's such big names in the industry that you can just stop walking down a hallway and just say hi and like get to pick their brain for 5 or 10 minutes. Like that's priceless.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's awesome. And you had talked a little bit about how it starts or the events at the beginning of the year, and so that really kind of sets the tone for your
I
entire
love
year.
that. Yeah, because that's how, and I'm sure some people are different based on what they do. Like I'm a portrait photographer, and everyone like high school seniors and weddings, like those are all during different seasons, right? But for me as a portrait photographer, I'm busy in the fall. So everyone's doing holiday portraits and family portraits. And yeah, so when I hit January, that's my slower season.
Hmm.
Well, that first half of the year. So that's when I actually like to sit down and kind of look at my year and go, how did I do? And what are my numbers? And I increase my prices every year, right? So I just take my product menu. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be just a couple percent. It can be like 2% or whatever you want to do, but increase, my prices every year so that my price list is, ready to go
Hmm.
for that next year. And then going to imaging and just going, okay, like, what do I want to focus on? I just finished shooting these like 50 sessions in the fall. So like, what do I want my focus to be for this year? Yeah, like I said, that's where I go in with my blinders and go in with my plan. And I go,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to do these things. And I just come up with so many ideas, like sitting in class. Like sometimes it comes from the speakers and from other people. But it's also like just giving yourself that space to let yourself be creative and let yourself think about your business, because we're always so busy just like keeping our heads above water, right? Like as business owners, it's like
Hmm.
we don't have time to think about new ideas and things. So I come up with some of my best like ideas on how I'm going to price things or products I want to offer. Or like I offer this portrait session called A Day in the Life, and since I do pet photography, it's like this 3 to 4 hour session, and it includes an album with it, right? And then we can go anywhere the client wants to go. So we can go to the park, or go swimming in their pool, or they can feed their dog dinner, or they can go for a drive in the car. But it's just these like super fun, like what the dog does in a day. And like I came up
Hmm.
with that idea like sitting there at imaging, not even because the speaker was talking about it, but just because I was like in that creative, giving myself the space to do that. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh, that would be really cool. And yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think you really kind of hit the nail on the head with that about imaging being about giving yourself the space as a
Yeah.
photographer and entrepreneur to sort of reflect on and like think about your business in maybe a way that
Yeah.
you don't really think about it when you're in the weeds every day.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's also the same concept as like when people start, right? Like if you look, I've been a pet photographer for 14 years now, right? So you look at my product menu and it's like pages and pages and pages of all these different products and services that I offer. And so many people get overwhelmed when they see that, other photographers, because they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many different things. And I'm like, no, don't start with all of that. When I started, I did unframed portraits, canvases, and holiday cards.
Hmm.
Those are the three products, literally all that I offered. And I had one portrait session option. I wasn't like mini sessions, outdoor sessions, studio. It was like, here's my one session that I offer, and here's the three products that I offer. So I kind of feel like imaging can be like that, where just keep it as simple as you want it to be. And then as you kind of, grow your business and get comfortable with those things, and you can kind of expand and add those things on. And so yeah, there's not really a cap to it because there's so much to learn, and there's you know yeah, I love that about it. um,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So what do you have any advice you could give photographers leading up to imaging, aside from, have a plan going in,
Mhm.
but sort of considering like our climate we're in right now, things are kind of uncertain. We're all kind of learning new ways to deal with old and new problems alike. Do you
Yeah.
have any advice for the audience?
Yeah, I think that this is the most important imaging that people should be attending. It's like so many people just like their worlds have been rocked, and it's like I'm in the same boat with other people. Like I was married for 15 years and I just recently separated from my husband. So I've been in this like dual income household, with my husband making 6 figures. And I always had a successful business, but I always kind of had that to fall back on. And it's like I'm so glad that I have the system set up, that I'm going to be teaching at imaging about understanding your numbers and saving for retirement. And it's like, I didn't leave there going like, oh my gosh, now what? It was like the pandemic hit and this like personal hardships hit. It was like, I don't know, I think it's the most important imaging for people to attend, just for that reason, because you never know what's going to happen in life, whether it's in personal relationships, whether it's in, deaths in the family, or whether it's, like something like this, like a pandemic. Like no one could have expected this and seen how it would have affected us.
Hmm.
So just doing that and just being in a supportive environment that, you know, so many people think like, I have to start lowering my prices. I have to start discounting to build my business up again. And it's like, no, like we need to do this in a way that you can survive and that, you know, you're being able to take care of yourself independently, even if you're, you know, in a relationship, even if you have the support of your parents or whatever, even if you have a full-time job outside of that. It's like, if you don't want this to just be a hobby, then let's do this, you know, and let's, yeah, I just think it's such a great environment for that. So,
Yeah, I love that idea of imaging as sort of the maybe one of the constants we can have in sort of
yeah,
uncertain times.
for sure. No, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Just one more question. So you've been a PPA member for quite a few years. Do you want to talk a little bit just in general about PPA, how it's helped your business?
Yeah, no, it's so great. And it's kind of goes back to what I was saying before where I didn't do everything at once, right? I wasn't like, I'm going to be a PPA member and go to all the classes and all the webinars and all the print competitions. It's like, there's just so much that you can do, right? So I probably didn't get into print competition for probably 5 years, you
Hmm.
know? So I was kind of doing all the other things, just doing like the super one, you know, super 1 day workshops and attending imaging and but yeah, I got into print competition and I actually earned my photographic craftsman degree last year. So that was really cool to be a part of that and walk the stage and, you know, receive my degree for that. And, you know, and that a lot of that has to do with teaching as well
Hmm.
within, you know, at West Coast School and all of these different things that are PPA related. But yeah, that's just opened up my world to so many, it's just that community again. You know, it's like I've taught all of these workshops in all these places. And now, so I have a camper van and, you know, I travel all over the country and I get to go, you know, I'm photographing clients and all of that, but I'm visiting all of these portrait artists, you know, these photographers along the way in all of these different states all over the country. And I know that part of it is so cool, that community part of it. You know, it almost makes me think like I played softball in college
Hmm.
and, you know, it was awesome because it's like, you know, you're on this team and all of this and you guys are all working towards, you know, winning. And that's kind of the point, right? The coaches need a win to have a job and all of that. But, you know, at the end of it, I look back and it's like 20 years later and it's like anything else. It's the memories and the people that we met and the people that helped us to get where we are today and, you know, to be successful individuals. And that's kind of what like imaging is for me now. Like that's what PPA is for me now, you know? It's that community of people that I can just like pick up the phone and, you know, hey, I have questions, or hey, can you help me through this? Or hey, I had a client ask this. I've never dealt with this before. And I have all of these people that I can, you know, reach out to. And everyone's like just so super willing to help, which is cool. So
Yeah, I love that.
I was,
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
yeah, I was on a road trip last year and I don't know what happened. I had some kind of a problem with like some files that I had. So I reached out to a friend. I was in Sedona, Arizona, and I reached out to this friend and I was like, I need to get to someone who has a computer, who has Photoshop, and who can like help me with this right now. And within like literally 10 minutes, my friend called me and he's like, okay, so and so, here's his number, give him a call. He's a PPA member. And I called him and like within an hour, I was at his studio and he was like helping me fix these files. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to have to reshoot this session. And I was like,
That's
how cool was that?
amazing.
Yeah, it was super cool. And like, he's never met me before, but he's like, come on in, you know?
Yeah,
So
that truly tells us that it's not just talk. You know, PPA really
yeah,
does have a great community of photographers that make
for
it up.
sure. For
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. And I think we're all just trying to raise each other up. And, you know, again, it's not this huge competition thing. So yeah,
Yeah, that's great. Well,
yeah,
thank you so much for your time today, Erica. I really love talking
yeah.
to you.
No, thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you speaking at Imaging USA.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I get to meet you in person. So,
Exactly.
all right.
Thank you.
See you later.